I'm Marianne Simons. I live in Wellington. And this has been something that we've done in other areas a number of times, and I want to thank everybody that has come, because all of you giving up a day and coming to help do planning and share your knowledge is such a critical piece in moving forward. So as we wait for Jean to show up, I see there are a couple of faces. Maybe not everybody knows everybody. If you just turn to a person you don't know, if you haven't already met them, introduce yourself. So we're going to be a small group that will be a very closely knit group by the end of the day, I hope. This was started with the idea that we have a couple of issues in our community, one being the emergency planning, another one being an interconnected trail system. And working with George Tauber a bit and some other minds in the community, Mike Odell and other people that have voiced interest. There's a lot of groups here and represented, which is wonderful. I contacted the Equine Land Conservation Resource, and they were invited, and graciously Anna Gibson, who's the director, came along with Susan Harding, who is their chair, and John Nicholson, the director of the Kentucky Horse Park, to all help us with the first Equestrian Planning Education Workshop that we're having for the community. So, I recognize that some of you might have to have tight schedules today. If we can just take a quick look at the agenda, just have agreement. If there's any issues we need to bring up now, just let me know so that we can plan. We are recording the morning session, and then the afternoon breakout sessions will not be recorded, but we will record the summary. There'll also be handouts. We want you to network, find out who has what information that will be useful. So at lunch, Whole Foods is going to be catering our lunch for us as well. Okay, I'd like to introduce Anna Gibson again and John Nicholson, because they are the two that are going to be doing the longer lecture, and we're going to have them after the break. So to start off, I guess Mike Odell. Do you want to give us kind of an overview of what's been going on in the village of Wellington?
Well, good morning. My name is Mike Odell, and I have been working... Not to scream out. Good morning, Mike Odell. Been working with the village now for a couple of years. We've been trying to put together the data to support our equestrian master plan, and in December of this year we presented our first draft to a joint committee of our EPC members, Equestrian Preserve Committee members, and our village council. And we did this in conjunction with FAU. Florida Atlantic University was a partner and has been partnering with us through the Living Lab and our contract with them. And they participated in helping us with some survey information that we gathered in a previous season. So we've pulled together our information, but today's talk I thought would be a little bit more general because I don't know exactly who's in the crowd, but I thought I would start with kind of an overview of Wellington and kind of give you an idea, as this is a planning component, to give you an idea of some of our challenges and some of the things we're facing, but how we got here. Wellington is located about 11 miles from our international airport locally, but we're about 12 or 15 miles from the coast. We're surrounded by our neighbors to the north, which is Loch Tetchy Groves, and the village of Royal Palm Beach, as well as unincorporated Palm Beach County. To our east, we have unincorporated Palm Beach County and our neighbors, Green Acres. And to our south is, you can see a water conservation area, which is probably one of our major components in dealing with Wellington, is the fact that we are so close to the water conservation area or the Everglades that water quality and our issues associated with that have been a very major driving force in our community. To our west, you can see we have agricultural lands, and that basically forms us in the heart, what I would call the heart of Palm Beach County. We are 45 square miles of a community, of which If you look at the very western side, you can see just a little bit north of that black line that buffers the Arthur C. Marshall Wildlife Area, there's a 10 square mile stormwater treatment area, STA. That was developed by the Army Corps of Engineers and South Florida Water Management District. And right now, Wellington spent almost $40 million, replumbing our drainage system. Initially, our drainage system was divided into two components, an A and a B system. We had A, which was the northern half of Wellington, flowed north into the C-51 canal, which is along State Road 7 or State Road 80, which is the Palm Beach Canal, and then it also flowed south into the water conservation area. But today, everything flows north. It all flows north into the C-51 canal and then west into the stormwater treatment area. Next slide. I put this plan up for you so that you could see that as a planned community, this is what the plan looked like. And I wasn't able to go back and find the original plan that was developed in 1972, but this plan represents kind of an evolution from 1972 to what you see in 1981. These are the things that have changed, and one of the major components that changed was the development of Palm Beach Polo and Country Club. Palm Beach Polo and Country Club, where it's located today, and as you see on this map, was just part of the overall Wellington PUD that was approved by Palm Beach County in '72. You'll click the button for me. And at that point in time, the major equestrian element that was in Wellington was Palm Beach Polo. It was our first stadium, and it was where the polo fields were located. Next one. The next one was the showgrounds, and where I've highlighted the showgrounds for you, as you can see, was planned to be residential homes. So the showgrounds, as you see it today, was not a planned component of our overall community. You can say that the southern half of Wellington wasn't planned, but in truth, it was. It was supposed to be large lots, 5-acre, 10-acre lots and larger, but the equestrian element, the showgrounds, the commercializing of it, if you would, wasn't part of that. Go ahead, next, click again. Click again. Today, what we have is the showground still remains in that same location and has expanded, but we've also lost, we've moved our polo facilities now to another location in Wellington where International Polo is now located. You'll click on the next one. And we now have the World Dressage Center located where polo used to be. So in Wellington, we now have 3 equestrian venues that were part of our community, that are part of our community today, that were not part of our community back almost 30 years ago when this community was initially planned. Go ahead and click again. So on top of the 3 facilities that Wellington has incorporated within its limits today, click again, we have 2 other facilities that are just outside of Wellington, which are the Jim Brandon Equestrian Center, and we also have Gulfstream Polo and the museum that's located there as well. So in this region, if we talk about this regionally, we now have basically 5 venues that are supporting and growing our equestrian industry. In Wellington, we have what we call the Equestrian Overlay Zoning District, or it's also known as the Equestrian Preserve Area. The area that's highlighted in yellow represents the Equestrian Preserve or Equestrian Overlay Zoning District. Within that zoning district, there are commercial wrecked properties. And those, right now, 3 of them anyway, represent our showgrounds, our World Dressage Center, and our stadium for polo. I've left highlighted for you in orange and in darker blue the Jim Brandon facilities and the polo facilities to our Gulfstream Polo facilities, just so you can again see the relationship that the vast majority of our overlay zoning district is in equestrian residential type lots. We have some, and there are specifically located those commercial areas that can support the venues that we have today. Within the EOZD or the EPA, we have sub-areas. In the sub-areas, the purpose of those sub-areas was to identify those particular communities that had specific had a specific geographical likeness. In other words, their lot sizes. As you look at sub-area B as an example, it's in the original Wellington PUD, but there are also lot sizes that are between 2.5 to 3 acres in size. The sub-area D is another large lot area, and sub-area C are 5 and 10 acre lots. Sub-areas A and E represent properties that are they're little ranches, Palm Beach Little Ranches, and Palm Beach Rustic Ranches, and those sub-areas we put those together so that they could recognize the unique equestrian nature of those communities, and we've given those communities a voice in how they look at the zoning and how they look at their community developing. So outside of the zoning requirements that we have for the EOZD, those two communities have additional requirements that they wanted to see for their particular community as well. Community concerns. As I mentioned earlier, we were in partnership with Florida Atlantic University, and during the survey that we performed with FAU, the idea that the horse and the horse well-being should be considered to be essential to our equestrian master plan. Well, what does that really mean? And when you start to break it down and look at what the community is talking about, we can talk a little bit about the safety, which is our next item, horse safety and crossings, putting things together that improve things. Remember, what I showed you on the map earlier was that the vast majority, in fact all the properties, if you look at it realistically, are privately held. The Village of Wellington only has control over the canal rights of way and road rights of way, and there are some bridle paths that are dedicated to the Village of Wellington. So we're not a massive landowner in this whole equation as far as the equestrian preserve area goes. We are a minor landowner, and we only contribute to the fact that we're trying to improve our drainage systems, our roadways, and the bridle path systems that are dedicated. And for most part, the bridle paths that you see and you hear about are also our roadways and our canal rights of way. And we also share those now with the alternate vehicles, which are essentially golf carts and mopeds and other vehicles. So there's a real struggle amongst our community as to how do we separate those type of travel vehicles and still utilize them as roadways, still convey water, which we have to do for drainage, and yet we move riders and horses safely from point A to point B. The equestrian preserve area needs to maintain its character. Well, if we talk about the character, let's go back in time and say, well, wait a minute, the character of the community was residential. It was supposed to be large lots. And when you're looking at the prices of values of land today, which we've all gone through a recession, but even today, land is selling anywhere between $120,000 to $300,000 to even $700,000 an acre. As an equestrian, when you put that kind of money into the ground, you're using every square inch of it. That really wasn't the plan back in 1972. So we've had a change in how we see our community, and it's because of the competitions that are here. The level of competition, I think without a question mark, we are the center of the world in the equestrian, when the equestrian world comes to us in a yearly basis. So this is important to us, but how do we maintain the current character? Because the current character is ever going to change. It's still changing, and it will continue to do so. In the study that we did, we have 500, and this was a year ago now, or a year and a half ago, we had 580 farms in Wellington. And we had 670 some properties that were vacant or single family that were in the EOZD that can change to some form of equestrian use over time. So 580 farms today, but we still have over 600 that can change. So there's still growth and opportunities for that to happen. It's desirable to have a mix of equestrian disciplines, which is pretty obvious because we have a multitude, but there are still many disciplines out there that we don't support that we could have in Wellington. And one of the comments that was made regularly is the people outside the EPA don't understand equestrian needs. Next slide, please. So our community issues are water quality. We still need to meet those federal standards. We need to provide some education on our BMPs and fertilizer and proper use of all that and waste disposal. Improving our trail systems and getting separation between horses and vehicles, which is still trying to provide those main services that we need. And improving and enhancing all of Wellington. In other words, educating all of Wellington about the equestrians so that we can integrate all of that into our overall plan. Those are our community issues. And there are many more, and they're much more in depth. I've been kind of short on my presentation, but believe me, this is a really complicated issue, and for those of you who have been living in this community for a number of years, you recognize how complicated it can be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. And I see Jean has joined us. A couple of things I'd like to piggyback on, and I think because we were not sure that who was speaking for South Florida Water Management District, and now they have offered us two wonderful folks. I think we'll have them follow. But I want to make sure that, does everybody have a copy of the agenda? It's loose, we can alter it a bit, and just get agreement so that we're on the same page with what we're doing. This was a grassroots effort. There's no sides, it's just I organized it with the help of others for free. We have a co-facilitating team of Equine Land Conservation. Susan Harding, John, Ann have offered. We're doing this on our own time and our own nickel to just try to help us move us forward based on experiences of seeing how other communities around the country have moved forward. And so today's purpose, the overall goal is, if you saw your agenda and what we sent out, is really to build some relationships and look at how do we move forward in some very strong housekeeping things that need to be done for communities, such as having emergency planning for horses, having interconnected trail systems with support and management long-term so we can have long-term planning goals, and perhaps looking at what do we need to do with a regional horse council or a horse board to secure the economic and community development of equines and equestrian activities, not just for Wellington, but for all of South Florida, because it's a much bigger picture. And these kinds of things are not limited to Wellington and landowners. These are much bigger issues that need to be integrated between state, county, and communities that all work together for the common good of trying to get there. And because we don't teach equestrian planning in the urban community planning or long-term planning, it's a big gap, and it has been.